Do you ever feel like manifestation is just another thing on your to-do list that you don't have time for? Like your spiritual practice is something that you have to do? Honestly, you're not alone because I felt that way too. Something that's really changed my relationship with manifestation is blending it into my lifestyle so that no matter what I'm doing, I'm also manifesting. I call this manifestation as a lifestyle, and it's single handedly made the entire manifestation journey more enjoyable for me. And I've seen my desires show up with a lot more ease. Manifesting as a lifestyle has made manifestation go from feeling like a task to something I just naturally do because it's who I am. If you'd like to learn more about this, I've created a step by step guide for you. I'll link it in my show notes so you can check it out. You're listening to the Affirmation Addict podcast with Pyle Corley. This podcast will teach you about the power of affirmations while making manifestation easy and accessible for you in order to enhance your spiritual consciousness. Thank you so much for being here, and now it's time to get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Affirmation Addict podcast. My name is Pyle, and I am so excited because today I am going through and sharing with you about my spiritual journey while also sharing my top 5 manifestation books. So I thought this would be fun because I love books. I think we all love books because it's such a great way to learn about someone's spiritual lens on the world. And so I want to share with you some of my favorite books that I still keep going back to and what I loved about them. So this first book is You Can Heal Your Life. This is by Louise Hay, and she is the original affirmation queen. And this book actually kickstarted my spiritual journey. I watched The Secret with my mom. I think you've all heard that story. However, she also gifted me this book, this exact copy. If you're watching the video, this is it. She wrote a little note to me. If I read it, I'll cry. So I will not read it because I'm so emotional. But this book absolutely opened my eyes to the power of your words, to the power of just the way we show up in the world. And for when it was published, let's see when it was published. Okay, I can't find it. But for when it was published, I think it is phenomenal. Some of the concepts might feel mainstream or basic now, but it's really cool to think about when it was published and how well made this was. She talks about thought patterns. She has like a glossary of affirmations in the back of this book based off of different diseases and ailments, which I thought was amazing because it really, I was like 12 or 13 when she gifted this to me. And so realizing that you can talk to your body and talk your body out of dis-ease was huge for me. And that, I think, starting that at such a young age, I think has changed my health journey so much. I've been lucky to have such good health and learn how to work with my body. So this book, I love it. I will just once in a while flip to it. It has some exercises in there, and it's just a beautiful, well-written book on affirmations and speaking your reality into existence and healing yourself from the inside out. So that is the book that 100% changed my life. Thank you, Mom. I absolutely love it, and I know it's a very popular book. And one of my favorite things to do is look back and reread books that have changed my life. I think that is so fun to do, to see where you were then and where you are now. I love doing that. This next book I stumbled across. I believe now it is very popular, but it's called Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. And this book, I think if I read it at the age when I was like 15, 16, I don't think I would have gotten it. I read this book actually recently, maybe 2 years ago. And I feel like he dives into inner peace and freedom and just reflecting on your place in the world. And almost for me, reading this book made it feel like my worries are useless and irrelevant, but in the best way. It felt so peaceful, I think is the best way. I think the book cover shows peacefulness. And it just felt like I really understood what freedom of who I was meant and how that felt. I feel like I was able to understand that like all of these shackles and limits and constraints that I'm putting on myself are not for anybody except everybody else. They're not for me. And so learning how to expand my consciousness and my personality, I think this book allowed me to challenge a lot of like the surface level spirituality and dive deep into spirituality. Because when it comes to manifestation, there's so many lenses. There are people who will show you the luxurious life. There are people who will show you the homestead life. There are people who will show you normal life. There's so many lenses and ways manifestation is taught to you. And I think spirituality goes deeper than all of that. It goes past the material world and into your own self. So this book, I feel like, was a really great explanation of that for me. And I love it. And he also has a second book that I read. I think it's called Living Untethered. So highly recommend this book. I love it. This book is very popular. I'm sharing basically all of the classic books, but they changed my life for a reason and they're classics for a reason. So I wanted to take you a little bit on the behind the scenes of my spiritual journey, and just different lenses of it. Next book is The Power of Now. This is by Eckhart Tolle. And I received this book, or bought. I think I bought this actually. I bought this book early in my business journey. I also always say that starting your own business is one of the most spiritual experiences of your life because it makes you question everything. And I bought this early on and I couldn't finish it. I was not able to read it. It was one of those books that I knew everybody recommended, but I just couldn't finish it. And I was really hard on myself because I was like, this is supposed to be a great book, but I just couldn't get through it. And then I picked it up, I would say a few years later, and I really thought it was a beautiful way of understanding what the present moment is. It's very, like highly written, like high level, high vibrational, kind of eloquently written. It didn't feel like simple writing, I think is the best way. And so maybe that's why I didn't like it the first time I read it. However, understanding later on in my journey what Eckhart Tolle is trying to say, I finally was able to wrap my head around it. And I finally was able to live it and embody it and experience it. Because in concept, The Power of Now is brilliant. However, getting through the book took a lot of time for me. And when I finally did get through it, I really, really enjoyed it. It's not my favorite structure. I'm a shorter chapter kind of girl. I love shorter chapters. But he talks about very complex concepts like the meaning of surrender and the power of presence and the inner body and dropping your ego and how to get into the now. So I do think this is a great book if you are working on presence, but it, for me, felt overly spiritual, but I'm curious if I read it now, how I would like it. So that is my honest thoughts. It's still such a powerful book, obviously. Next one is by Gary Zukov. It is The Seat of the Soul. This book, I felt like it was a very easy to digest book. It's kind of shorter chapters, and the chapters are things like heart, intuition, karma, evolution, very high level concepts, but just intentionally chosen. And I think that's why I liked this book so much more than The Power of Now. This book for me came at a time when I thought I had my spirituality figured out, but I felt so lost in the way I was showing up in the world. I've already quit my job at this point, and this book really helped me just get into how am I showing up as my soul? What is my soul purpose? And how do I reconnect to who my soul is? Because I was so driven by, okay, like for a long time, my business was all about sustainability, right? My business for a long time was, okay, I make all this money in a corporate job. I need to replace that. That for a long time was a purpose. Can I replace that? And can I sustain that? Can I make my own and generate my own income through my own means? That was such a long time what my inner motivation was for my business, like my inner validation more so, that I needed to replace and show, especially my dad, show him that I didn't mess up by quitting my job. I didn't throw my business and I didn't throw my degree and my college experience away, that this was important. And so this book came at a time I had my business was established. Everything was established, but I felt still lost. And I was like, I'm literally 27 years old. Like, I need to keep going. Like, there is more that needs to come out of this. And so I was like, I cannot be having a midlife crisis right now. There's no way that this is it. There's no way that this is my peak. I felt like I had peaked is maybe a better way to put it. And so this book came at a perfect time to really get back into who am I? What is my soul? What is my purpose? And I think it's such a beautiful way he's written it. He has other books. I haven't read them. It's a thick book. This is like 300-400 pages, but it was easy for me to read, actually. The way he structured it, I thought, was beautiful. And this version comes with a study guide. So it's kind of like questions and like self-reflective questions that you can go through. So this book really helped me come back to what my why is, what my purpose is, and that no, I have not peaked. There's so much more to learn, so much more to dive into, and I'm here for a reason. So what is that reason? Hi, beautiful friend. I hope you're enjoying this episode. I wanted to hit pause for 15 seconds and share with you about my spiritual membership I created to help you raise your vibration and manifest with ease. I created Affirm It so you can have access to all, and I really mean all of the spiritual tools you need to step into your higher self and watch your dreams manifest with ease. If you're really ready to dive into your spirituality and connect with your highest self, I invite you to join the Affirm It membership. More details are in the show notes if you're interested. And now let's jump back in. Lastly, I don't have the physical copy here. That's at my parents' house. It is one of my favorite books, and it is called... Okay, you won't even be able to see it on video. It's called The Law of Attraction, The Basics of the Teachings of Abraham by Abraham Hicks. And Abraham Hicks, if you don't know, I'm sure you know, that Abraham Hicks is one of the original kind of pioneers of Law of Attraction. I think they were in The Secret, and they talk about feeling good. They have like, it's a woman named Esther Hicks, and she channels these guides and she kind of does workshops, and they're so fun to hear her talk. It's very playful. And she talks about how like the humanness of us overcomplicates the manifestation journey, and you can really attract. It's very vibration based and feelings based, but I think she does a great job explaining it. A lot of people have criticism towards Abraham Hicks because they're like, that's not it. I mean, if you think about it, nothing is it. There's no one size fits all approach. There's different layers and different elements and different ways to practice Law of Attraction. And I think they do a really good job. So a lot of people say that Abraham Hicks is not comprehensive enough for you to manifest your life. I think it can be, but I love combining different things. But I feel like so much of modern day manifestation is based off of Abraham Hicks. I think that's probably the root for most of the manifestation concepts that you see online. I think most of that is rooted in Abraham Hicks. This book is super special to me, and the physical copy even has it. But essentially, I started reading this book when me and Tom first started dating, before I quit my job, before I started Affirmation Addict. And it means so much to me because this book, I was at a time where I was at a job that I manifested, but I hated it. My love of my life was deployed and I couldn't speak to him. And there was just so much in my world that felt like it wasn't going right. And I had no idea what to do next. And I remember specifically while reading this book, and I'm also a person who reads multiple books at the same time because I get bored easily. And if I really like a book, which is very rare, I will read it in like 3 days, but that's very rare for me. However, I was reading this book and I was like, I just feel like my world is falling apart. I miss Tom. I feel alone. I was crying myself to sleep every night at that point. And I remember opening this book and a note falls out, and it was just like this note. I think Tom wrote the note, and it was a sign. I was like, I need a sign that Tom's going to be okay because he was deployed. I felt horrible in general. And I remember I was like, I need a sign that he's going to be okay. And we barely spent any time together before he went on this deployment. And somehow in this book, there was a note from him that said, you're going to be okay. I'm going to be home soon. And actually got notified the next day that he was coming home early from deployment, which is unheard of, especially in the unit and the battalion he was in. It's not a thing. They don't come home early. They normally come home late. And so Tom was like, I don't know what you did, but I think you did this. And it was just such a cool confirmation that, wow, like we are so powerful and things can happen. And it felt like such a beautiful sign, and it made me feel reconnected to there is more in this world. And that's when I really started feeling passionate about how does no one else talk about this? Back then, nobody talked about, no one our age, younger adults, nobody talked about manifestation and spirituality. It was always, I was me and my mom's friends. I was the only young person at these things. So it was really cool for me to experience that, because it kickstarted so much change. Because a few months later is when I got the idea to start this business and the app, and all of it kind of flourished from there. So it was really cool. And all of these books have such a special place in my heart. I have them linked for you in my show notes. I linked my Amazon storefront, which I even have some books for love and soulmates, for health and wellness, for manifesting money specifically. So I have books specific to that, and I've read them all, and I like them all for different reasons. Now, one important note is, and this isn't all sources of information, including books especially though, because I feel like we buy a book and we're like, it's going to change my life. And with how easily available information is, I think one thing I've been trying to implement is, if I'm reading a book, my also focus is to apply what I'm learning, because you can consume, you can learn. It's like school, right? You can learn everything, but do you actually use it in your day-to-day life? That's a choice, right? That's up to you. So for me, one thing I've been working on is, if I'm reading a book, how do I actually learn and apply? And for me, it's been taking notes. It's been finding action items, or bringing myself back to create inspired and my own action items based off of what I've been learning in the book. Because ultimately, only you can hold yourself accountable. So if you don't have a way of actually putting into practice what you're learning in these books, then the information and the depth can only go so far. And then you might get into the cycle of, I just need to keep learning, because we like to use learning as an excuse and as a kind of a way to override actually doing and actually putting into practice and actually taking action in our physical life. Life is happening when you are with the people who trigger you. Life is happening when you are out and about and someone cuts you off on the freeway. Life is happening when you get fired from your job. Life is also happening when you get a promotion. Those are the moments where life is happening. So can you take these concepts that you're learning from social media or all of these books and actually apply them in your own life? Because life is a collection of experiences. And when you are actually starting to live that life and live that life through these spiritual teachings, is when you're starting to live that lifestyle. But if you just consume, and don't apply, you might actually just be using consumption as your excuse of taking action. You might be using reading a book as a way of actually practicing your spirituality, when in reality, that doesn't count. That is one layer of it. Information and wisdom is so important, but actually spending the time in your own life to live it. And you'll notice when you start living it, you will have your own interpretation of this wisdom, that you might not agree with everything in every single book. And that's okay. You don't have to agree. You're not reading it to reconfirm your ideas. You're reading it to see the world in a different way and see life and the meaning of life in a different way. So that is my big takeaway. Please, yes, read these books. They're powerful. Or read them again and notice, how can you actually apply what you're teaching, and notice how much of what you're consuming online, what you're consuming in these books and online courses even, how much are you actually living? Life is not only about just consuming more information, because more information will not make you feel happier. You have to practice these and apply these. And so that is my big takeaway for you. As you do get these books, please find ways for yourself to actually apply them and live these concepts as well. You don't have to master them, but you can practice them. So I love you. The links are in the show notes for you, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If this episode resonated with you, it would mean the world to me if you could rate and review the podcast and share it on your social media so I know to keep creating episodes that are inspiring you to manifest. I'm so genuinely grateful for the time we shared today, and I'd love for you to join the community by following @Affirmation Addict on Instagram. To continue diving into spirituality and manifestation, head over to my website, affirmation-addict.com. Until next time, I'm sending you so much love and so much healing energy.